So how was everyone's spring break? Good? Yeah, we're still a little tired, a little sleepy. The time change, right? All right. Well, welcome to CS1 again. So we're going to be talking about a couple of things today. But first, what is it that we know? What do we know? A lot. That's helpful. All right. So what do we know? Arrays? All right. What else?
What is it that we know?
Arrays, methods, loops.
About
Kind of loop?
today. But first, what is it that we know? What do we know?
Also, one thing, if you can't read my handwriting, please let me know. Okay, don't just like, I can't read that. Tell me and I'll rewrite it, okay? I write kind of fast, okay? So just, work with me, guys, okay? What else do we know?
Conditionals.
Okay, conditionals. What are conditionals?
If and else statements.
Conditional. We have if, else, and switch, right? What else do we know? I'm sorry? Boolean statements, all right. So we know data types, right? Data types. So what are the data types we know? String, integer, double, what else? Huh? Floats? What else? Boolean. What else? Characters. What else? I think that's about it, right? All right. We're with me, right? Everyone understands?
Yes.
Who's with me? All right, cool. So now the next thing we're going to talk about people. People. Yeah, we're going to talk about people in computer science. So let's think about people.
Please let me know.
Who here is a person?
Tell me and I'll write it, okay? I write kind of
Some of us are on our phones, so they're not really sure if they're a person. All right, so who here is a person? All right, we're all people, right? So what can we say about a person? What does a person have?
Emotions.
Okay, let's be more generic. What is this something that all persons have? Huh? Okay, sure. Let's be a little bit more generic.
Energy coursing through our bodies.
All right, let me give you a little hint. All right, so is it safe enough to say that we all have a name? Yeah? My name is Daniel. Everyone has a name, right? So what else do we have? Generic. What is something that
Date of
people
birth.
have? Date of birth. So we have a birth date, right? What else do we have?
Social security number.
Okay, if we're a U.S. citizen, we have a social. We have an age, sure. What else do we have? I'm about 5'10".
Height.
We have a height. What else do we have? So move over here. What else do people have? Persons have. What is something that you have? Do we have any left-handers in here? We have. So we also have is right-handed. Right? Is right-handed, is left-handed. What else do we have?
Heart.
Okay, but more generic. Who here is a male? Who's here is a male? And females. See? So we're either is male or is female, right? Right? Is it clear? What can we say about all of this together?
Personality.
Yeah, it's like a shell of a person, right? So something very generic. Everyone has a name, everyone has a birthday, everyone has either right-handed or left-handed, unless you're ambidextrous. Everyone has all these things. Make sense? Who's with me? All right, so think about it this way. So if this is a shell of a person, can we create a person using code? Yeah, right? All right, so how do you think we're going to do that? We're going to introduce something called a class. Has anyone ever heard of a class? Yes? Did we do the reading on the class? I don't remember. No? All right, well, we're going to get a little ahead of the game. All right, so just remember this. Everyone has this written down? Because I'm going to ask you. All right, so a class is essentially a shell, right? So it's a shell. It holds stuff. It holds information, right? So how do we define a class?
Public,
Public,
class,
public, class,
and then the name,
and then what should we name it? What should we name this class?
person.
We're with
I'm
me,
sorry?
sense? Who's with me? All right, cool. So
Individual.
now the next thing we're gonna
Person.
talk about. we're
Person
gonna talk
works.
about people.
Yeah? Because we're renaming
Yeah, we're
persons,
gonna talk
right?
about people and
So let's call it person. Public class, person,
Think about people. Who here?
right? Then we
is a
need
person?
these little curly brackets, right?
I write kind of
Okay.
syllabus, and
So now what do you
are-
think goes inside the
We're
class?
not really sure if they're a person. All right, so who here is a person?
Hmm?
All right, we're all people, right?
What do you think goes inside the
So what
class?
do we say?
We just kind of wrote it down right now.
All of the
All of these things. So we're going to call these things attributes or fields, okay? Attributes or fields. So what can we call? So we had, what do we have right now? We had name, right? So how do we find a variable name?
A string.
A what? A string. So how do we write that down? What do I write? Tell me. String? And then what should I call it?
Name,
Name, right? Okay, so we're missing something right here, right? So what are we gonna put right here?
Initialize the string.
We're gonna put the modifier. Does everyone remember what the modifier is? Yes? No? No? Okay, public, private, and protected. Do you remember those? Public, everyone can access it. Private, only certain individuals can access it. And it's very, if you're only using that class. And protected, everyone in that little package can use it, okay? You're gonna get more information on that as you go on in your career, but just follow me for now. Okay, so we want all of these variables to only be used inside the class or people who have access to the class, right? So we're gonna call these private. Does it make sense? Private, string, name, okay? And then we're gonna set it to equal to an empty string, okay? Does it make sense? Okay, because we're creating the shell of a person. Make sense? So what's next?
Birthday.
Birthday. So how should we define a birthday?
As a series of integers.
Okay, we could do integers or we could do something else. We can do characters. Okay, my birthday is in October.
Okay,
of
string.
an integer.
We could do a string, okay? So the birthday is kind of tricky. You could do it in integers, you can do it in strings. For the sake of this example, we're gonna go ahead and do it in a string, okay?
And then be in a three-dimensional.
Okay, so what do we have? We have private, string, birthday, right? And we're gonna have it in empty string. Does everyone get that? Who's with me? All right, what's next? Height? Age. Okay, so how do we define age?
integer,
Integer? Okay. So what do I write?
Private and
and then age.
Age, right? And we're just gonna leave age like this. Okay? So private int age, semicolon, yeah? What's next? I'm sorry? Height? Okay, how do we define height?
integer or double.
Okay, so it depends how you're gonna use it, right? So are we gonna call the height in inches? Are we gonna call the height in feet inches? Are we gonna do it in centimeters? What do you guys wanna do? You wanna do it in inches?
Need to be added.
You could. It depends on how you want to define the height. So let's say you're 5 feet tall, that's 60 inches, right? So how would you define that?
Using the remainder function,
Okay.
like to convert. To
Okay, guys, don't make it too complicated. It's not that complicated. Okay? So let's just define it in inches, yeah? So let's say you're 60 inches tall, right? Let's do private. Int height. Right? Does that make sense? Because if your height is going to be 60 inches, it's just going to be an integer. Let's just assume that everyone's going to be perfectly inch by inch, yeah? Huh? Okay, what's next? Work with me, guys. Work with me.
If they're right-handed or left-handed.
Okay, is right-handed. So how should we have that?
Boolean.
Boolean? Okay, so private Boolean is right-handed. Is everyone with me?
Yes.
Who's with me? All right, so what's next?
It's male or female.
Okay, so what should I write?
Boolean. Again.
Does that make sense? Yes, we're clear. So we define the class person. We define the shell of person, right? That makes sense. So everything that a person has these attributes, has these fields. Yeah. Who's with me? Okay, don't fall asleep on me, guys. Everyone's with me, right? All right. So in general, this does absolutely nothing for us, right? This is just a bunch of blah. We got to do something with it, right? All right. So remember how we defined methods, right? Shake your head, yes. Shake your head, yes. All right, guys. So we did methods, right? So now we're going to do something a little similar. We're going to call something a constructor. Who's heard of constructor? All right. So a constructor is literally what it sounds like. So some guy goes into the memory and starts building stuff and sets up this memory for your object, okay? Okay? It sets up this area in memory and it says, hey, we're going to construct this. Does that make sense? So that's really what it does, okay? So we're gonna talk about two different types of constructors, okay? The first is called a default constructor. Everyone say default constructor.
Default constructor.
Default constructor, all right, let me put some comments. Remember, you always put comments. Default constructor. Okay, so if you look at all of these are private, meaning only the people in the class can access it, right? Now, we want the constructor to be able to get outside of the class, right? Right? We want to access it outside of the class. Okay, so here we go. So how do you think we should define a constructor? Okay, so let me go ahead and type. All right, so what we have here, we're going to call it public. So everyone can access it. And then our constructor is going to be the name of the class, right? Public person. Then our default constructor is going to be empty. Empty. We're going to open it up, and we're going to close it. That's it. That's the default constructor. Everyone understand? Who's with me? It makes sense so far?
Would that go under?
Yeah,
Or
so
that's a separate thing?
this is under. Sorry, I don't have enough room. So everything's just gonna kind of go straight down. But this makes sense, right? Any questions so far? All right, so this is the default constructor. Okay, I'll show you how we're gonna use it in just a little bit, okay? So just know. All right, so if we use this constructor, nothing's inside, right? So that means when we call it, nothing's going to be filled out. None of these are going to be filled out. Okay? So now we got to create something where these items right here, these fields are going to be filled out. So we're going to call it a constructor. Not default constructor, just a regular constructor. Okay? So we're going to define it public. Person again. Person. And then we're going to open up the parentheses, and then we're going to call it like this, okay? So let me show you. Let me get my notes so I don't forget anything. Alrighty. So what do we have here? We have a string name, right? So we're going to put string name. Everyone can see this? Do I need to write it bigger? I'll erase it and write it bigger. No, we're good? Alright, string name. And then what's next? String birthday. What's next? Integer age, right? And then we have integer height. Okay. All of this is supposed to be on the same line, but I write too big. Okay. Boolean is right-handed. And then Boolean is male. And then you close it, right? Okay? Does it make sense? And then you put the little brackets. Okay? Does it make sense? I'm going to rewrite it over here because we need more space. Everyone with me? Who's with me? Who's with me? All right. So let me just write it again real quick. I once had a professor that every time phone went off, he would give us. Okay, everyone understands what I'm writing, right? Alrighty. So that's our constructor, yes ma'am.
I have a good question. So is the constructor similar to a method or is it something different?
It's similar to a method, yes. We'll show you how we're going to use it in practice right now. Okay? So does this make sense so far? So we have our default constructor, which has nothing in it. And then we have another constructor that we're going to put all of the information in. Does that make sense? All right. So if you go back in your notes, remember how we had a public class person, and then we had string name or whatever. Remember that? And a bunch of other stuff, right? We're good? All right. So this string name, we're going to call it this dot name is equal to name. So let me explain what this is saying. This dot name is referring to this name. Does that make sense? And this name, so if we were to put name 2, maybe that would be a little easier for you guys to understand. Does that make sense? So this dot name is equal to this name. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
But put it 2, but we don't actually have to put the 2.
No, you don't have to. I'm doing it so you guys can see the difference. So that you guys can put that this name 2 is this guy right here.
And
Yes.
also, this is all under the whole.
Yeah, so this is going to be all straight down down the line, okay? Yes.
Does it have to be this?
Yes, it should be this. For the sake of this class, let's do it this. Okay? Any questions? Who's with me? Who's not with me? Yes, sir.
What is this?
This is referring to, okay. So we have a class, right? And we want this class. So we're referring to this name. That's all it's saying. This is just a little keyword that's saying this guy.
Also, this is
But I thought we wanted a private.
Yeah, but this is all the same class. So whenever you have something in the same class, it can access the information in that class.
So does it get like, indented?
Yes. Yes, yes. Any questions so far? Who's with me? All right, cool. So then we're gonna do this dot birthday is equal to birthday 2. Does that make sense? Who's with me? Okay, so we're writing, and then the last one's gonna be this dot is male is equal to is male 2. That's how we define a constructor. So everything that is going to be here is going to be an attribute of that class. It's going to make sense in just a second, I promise. Okay? Okay. Any questions so far? We're good? All right. So let's use it in practice. There's one more thing before we move on. Okay, so we all know about methods, right? Shake your head, yes. We all know about methods. All right, so there's a methods called setters and getters. I'm enunciating setters and getters, yeah? So you set something and you get something. Okay, so what do we know about setting things? So let's say we want to set the name, right? So how do we write a method? How do we write a method for set name? What do you think? Okay. Now these methods are going to be accessible outside of this class. So it's going to be public. Okay. And remember how we did static earlier? Remember how we did static earlier? Someone? Yes? Okay, we're going to get rid of that for now. Okay? We're going to explain why this is different, okay? So public, so if you're going to set something, you just want to change the variable inside the field, right? Does it make sense? So, do you need to return anything? No, right? So it's public void. And then what should we do if we want to set this name? What should we call it? I'm sorry? Set name, perfect. Set name. This is a lowercase s. Set name. Okay? Should it take in any variables? Should a set name take in any variables? So, when you're born and your parent says, I'm going to name you Daniel. So they set your name to Daniel, right? Or whatever your name is, right? They're giving you a name. So should they pass a parameter in? Huh? Yes, of course. Because how would I know what your name is if they don't say it? Right? Set name. So it should be a string, right? And then what can we call it? We can call it my name. It doesn't really matter. My name. Okay? So we're going to say this dot name, which is referring to this guy, make sense, is equal to my name. Who's with me? Who's not with me? Don't be shy. We're good? Okay, cool. So that makes sense, right? Okay, so you're gonna do this for the rest of them. It's the same process. So if we have a Boolean, we're gonna have public void set is, or I'm sorry, set is right-handed. You're gonna get Boolean called hand, and you're gonna say this dot is right-handed is equal to hand. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
So we're just creating a bunch of methods with all the.
Exactly. Exactly. All you're doing is creating the methods to set these variables. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Okay, now we're going to do getters. What do you think a getter is? Anybody, go ahead. Go ahead. Not quite, not quite. A getter. So, when someone comes and asks me, hey, what's your name? I reply, Daniel. Does it make sense? So if someone asks me, I just reply. So all someone is doing is going, getting my information, and I give a response. Does that make sense? Yeah? So how do you think we should write a getter? Okay, so we're gonna have a return. So let's do a get name. So we're gonna have public. Am I returning something? Yes, what am I gonna return?
Person's name.
What type? What variable type?
String.
String, right? Public string. What's gonna be the name of the method? No, not quite. Get name. And I'm teaching you guys the standards that we use. So get name, get whatever the variable is, yeah? What should parameters be? Is there gonna be any parameters?
Will one be like first and last name or?
Well, you could, if we have defined it to be first name, then you can get last name, get last name. No parameters, right? Because we're not gonna need anything. We don't need to tell the method. We're just getting them. So get name, and then what are we gonna return? Well, we already know we're returning a string. So what are this dot name? So return this dot name. Remember, so you're returning this name, the person's name. That's the name you're returning. Does that make sense? Who's with me? Who's not with me? Be honest, guys. This will definitely be on a test, I promise. All right, we're good. So I'm gonna continue because you guys said you're good. So I'm gonna do one more. So public, boolean, get is male. And I'm gonna return this dot is male. Does that make sense? Because you're going to be female or male, so it's going to be true or false. Makes sense? We're together, right? Yeah? All right. Now here's the fun part. We're going to use this. We're going to understand why all of this is useful, okay? And then we're going to do a little act skit, okay? So if you want to volunteer, let me know. Not yet. All right. So we just defined a person class, right? Shake your head, yes. That's what we did. Okay. So a person class, I'm going to write it again for you. So it's the person. I'm sorry. I'm going to write the little structure for you. Public, class, person. And then you're going to have fields. You're going to have attributes. Attributes. This, I'm sorry. Private. String name, right? And then it's going to continue. Then you're going to have setters. Then you're going to have, my bad. You're going to have default constructor. Then you're going to have regular constructor. Then you're going to have setters and getters. And then you're going to close. Does that make sense? That little structure. That's the structure that we're going to define our class as. Who's with me? Guys, who's with me? Who's with me? All right. Who's everyone else? Is anyone not with me? We're good. We're clear on this, right? So this is how we define a class. This is how we define the structure of a person, right? The structure of a person. I'm a person, you're a person, you're a person. Okay, so how do we distinguish between different people? So, inside of our, we're going to pick a different class. We're going to call our class public class students. I don't know. Students, right? And inside student class, we're going to have public static void main string arts, and then we're gonna have a bunch of stuff. Okay, does it make sense? Yes.
It's all in one file, right? It's not separate files?
Yeah, no. So this is one file, file 1, or this is person.java, and then this is students.java. Good question, good question. Yeah, so they're separate, they're separate. As long as they're in the same like file structure, or the same folder, source folder, then you can use them like that. We're good, right? Everyone's with me. So, let's define students. Okay, so I'm gonna do 2 students, okay? So the first one is going to be of type person. So how do we define a string? Let me show you. So we have a string, and then we have value, and then we have something, right? Right, that's how we define a string. So, we're going to define a new person similar to this. So, we're going to define a new person as type person. Does that make sense? A new person as type person, and we're going to give it a name. We're going to name it my person. Does this make sense so far? We have just some discussion in the back, so do you have any questions?
You erased the string value.
Mhm. Okay, yeah. So when you define a string, you're just gonna go string, and it's gonna have a name, and then you're gonna have some value, right? That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm saying.
That's where I wanted to know where the
Sure.
difference was. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Don't be afraid to ask. All right. So string, some name, and then a value. Okay. So similarly, we're going to define person of type person from the person we defined. My person, we can call it whatever you want. You can call it octopus if you wanted to. It doesn't make sense, but you can call it that. Okay? So give it reasonable names, yeah? So person, my person, is assigned to new. So new is saying, hey, I'm gonna go into memory and I'm going to create space for this guy. Okay? So person of type person named my person is equal to a new, and what are we gonna call it? Person, like that. So remember our constructor, if you come back over here, our constructor was public person, like this, right? Our default constructor. Our default constructor is like this, yeah? So, person. Does that make sense? How they're the same? So they're gonna have the same thing. Yes, sir.
So that statement there, person, this is also called constructor, that statement?
No. So what we're doing is we're creating a new instance of person. So we're creating what they call an object. Yes, sir.
So it's kind of like, the way how you did it was basically, instead of using string characters from Java, you just made your own kind of like their own thing.
Exactly. So, you know our data types, right? This is, very loosely, our new data type. This is our new class. This is our new structure. This is our new, something that's going to hold it together. Yeah? So we have person, type person, my person. This is the name, and creating a new person. Yes, sir.
Can you explain that last part about person and person?
Okay, yeah. So remember our default constructor, right? Default constructor. So we created public, person, and it was blank, right? So this constructor, you see how this signature right here is person without anything in it? This is the same thing. So they're gonna match, okay? So remember our other one. So we created a different constructor. So we had constructor. So we had public, and then we had person, and then what do we have? We had string, right? String name, and then birthday, right? Remember this one? Okay, and then it ended, right? And then we had this dot name is equal to name 2. Remember these? Okay, so let's create another instance. So we have person, right? Because person was how we were defining the class, person. So person is the type, person is the type. Then we have another name, my person 2. Come up with better names than I am, okay? I'm very dull, okay? And we're gonna create a new instance of it. Okay, then we're gonna create person, but this time we're gonna fill out the information. So we're gonna fill it out for me. So what was my name is Daniel, at least sometimes, and today is October 26th. This was a string. I am right-handed. I don't remember what the other ones were. Would you guys get the idea, right? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. And this is a semicolon, okay? So, now let me tell you, my person has everything is very generic. When we have the fields, name is equal to this, empty string, my person, very generic. My person 2, his name is Daniel. Does that make sense? Who's with me? Who's not with me? All right, everyone's with me. So this makes sense, right? All right, can I get 2 volunteers? Someone from the back. Come up. Come on. All right, cool. So we're gonna do a little activity. Okay, come stand over here. All right, so this guy is, okay, go ahead and stand over there.
That's it?
Yeah. All right, so this guy is gonna be my person, right? So he's gonna be my person. So my person. Okay, so here's the main. So what's gonna happen? The main runs, boom. So it's gonna come, push it over here. All right, so, yay. Sorry. My person is now in memory. Does that make sense? He's now a real person. He's a real object. Does he have a name? No. So what do I want to do? I want to give him a name, right? So what do? I do my person dot set name. What's your name?
Valente. V-A-L-E-N-T.
Valente, right? My person dot set name. So I'm giving him a name. I'm assigning him a name. Does that make sense? My person, this object.